So that was the great Marian Anderson. Who There was a fabulous PBS special this weekend, and I felt it's Women's History Month, and it's a nice dovetail with African History Month. So I thought we'd play that and finish with her as well. But a special show here today. Like I'm calling it the Prez Show. A chance for some candid conversation with our own president of LaGuardia Community College, President Kenneth Adams. Hello, Mr. President.
Hey, Hugo. How are you? Good afternoon.
Very good.
All right.
I told you that, or I told folks as we were playing this show, we were going to keep it a little bit looser. And this time, though I did talk about a few things that we could touch on, and I don't know if you have anything in particular you want to talk about. You're working on many venues now. You're moving. You've got a podcast, which I listened to today, the one on fundraising, and of course opening sessions where you did the PowerPoint and went through many things, and I think in particular I'd like to go over your 10 points vision aspirations for LaGuardia as maybe something, an armature that we could work from. I feel there's a lot of you. If people want to know what you're doing and what you're thinking, they have that opportunity, which is not typical of most leaders. And how do you feel about that? Do you think are we getting too much of you?
That's up to you and everybody in the LaGuardia community to judge, not me. You're getting some of me, but I guess it's my style, Hugo. I think it's really important under any circumstances to just get out there and listen and learn and talk to folks, and in exchange and gratitude for the time and support you get, you got to turn around and tell people what you're going to do and what you care about and share your thinking. And I do believe in kind of, as much as possible, kind of collective decision making as a foundation for shared governance. And shared governance is really a foundation of CUNY and of LaGuardia. So look, it's never a perfect world, but it matters a lot, like to get out, talk to people, and get folks' input. I'm in month 7, so there's still so much I learn every week. And I'd say just a second quick thought on this, Hugo, that kind of like getting out and talking to folks and getting people's input is even, I think I hope I'm not overcompensating, but I'm trying to compensate for COVID, right? Like I'm trying to get out and have this communication as aggressively as I can, because we're not together, on Thompson Avenue. We're spread all over the metropolitan area and beyond, working remotely. And here's where the technology is great, right? This radio show, WLGR, the podcast with Jamie Riccio, the new newsletter, got a March issue I got to edit this afternoon with Gina. It's a good thing, right? The technology enables me to get out there. I'd get to do Zooms with entire departments that would never fit in my office on campus. In fact, it'd be hard to get physically. A lot of the stuff would be hard to do under the best, like pre-COVID circumstances. So there's a flip side of this, which is I think that technology enables me to meet one-on-one and in group sessions with people that otherwise would be tricky, right? Just to coordinate if we were trying to do it in person.
I think that's one of the takeaways from the pandemic is going to be this mixing of availability. I mean, LaGuardia used to be, we were famous for the face-to-face meetings, and people would historically go from meeting to meeting, and you'd see them coming in and out, but this gives us now another option to work with, which actually affords more your ability. I mean, I don't know about you personally, but I'm in a lot of meetings, and I can schedule them literally back to back and move from one thing to another, and which has a positive. I mean, I know that there's also the negative that we may be doing more than what's reasonable. I mean, I know I certainly am. Will develop screen fatigue by about 4:30, 5 o'clock each day. I don't know about you. I mean, is this something that you're thinking about as well? That this is a piece that's here to stay?
I think aspects of it may be here to stay, but my guess is people have a longing to get back to the face-to-face, to be in our case, to be on campus and to go to those meetings again with the lousy coffee and the wrinkled paper cup. And there's a view that Yeah, there's a kind of a pent up, a lot, we all have this, right? So pent up energy, excitement, enthusiasm for getting back to with our friends and colleagues. In my case, we're getting to meet people. Like I've never met anybody at LaGuardia yet, all on Zoom, man. It's all on Zoom. So I think there'll be a lot of excitement as we are allowed in the future, knock lots of wood, to do that. But some of this has proven to be really efficient. You're right. So for example, the day that you just described, typical for you, Hugo, bouncing from Zoom to Zoom, same thing for me, but it enables me as a new president of LaGuardia to cover more ground than I could ever cover otherwise. And sometimes I feel fortunate, like in my short 6 months at LaGuardia, I've been able, if you take an area of LaGuardia like the Division of Student Affairs, VP and Irita Seals area, she's introduced me to a lot of the people that run the different units there. And there's a ton of people in Student Affairs. Well, then I do Zooms, often back to back, with Loretta Capuano and the Student Information Center, or Gail in Financial Services, or James and SGA, and I can load up a day and cover all this territory in Zooms. Now it's not face to face, but I'm getting people's stories. I'm learning about what they do. They're pinpointing issues for me, and it's funny. Like there's a downside, I'm sure, to being a new college president in a pandemic, but the technology and this kind of format of doing it all online, doing it all remotely, has enabled me to cover a tremendous amount of LaGuardia ground in a short amount of time. We have 2,500 people at LaGuardia, and I've met many hundreds of them. I mean, not individually, not to shake the hand, not to look you in the eye, but at least I get to hear their stories, and they get to tell me what I should pay attention to.
Yeah, one nice touch. I was listening to or I was watching the Zoom cast when you spoke to the folks from the ASL program. And I just remember if it was there or if it was in opening sessions, that you thanked the sign language folks by name, which was something I have never seen anyone ever do before, is to thank in many ways, we kind of try to pretend as if they're not there, as if, to make it more inclusive. But you not only pointed them out, you thanked them by name. And I thought that was a nice touch.
Well, I guess the way I think of it is they're interpreting for me. You might think, or somebody might think, that they're signing for the deaf or hard of hearing person to understand. Well, then that person can thank them. I'm saying, I wish I knew American Sign Language, but I don't. So it's a limitation of mine. And the signers at LaGuardia, when I make an address, like at opening sessions, I have to thank them because they're my interpreter, so that our deaf members of our community can understand what I'm saying. And the fault is mine for not knowing American Sign Language, but thank goodness I have an interpreter who can interpret for me.
Yeah, I know that's one of my aspirations. It would be great to be able to teach a class and lecture and be signing at the same time, but maybe that's for the next life. So what do you want to talk about? Do you want to do we want to talk about the what I was thinking of as using as an armature, which is your vision for LaGuardia? Do we want to? We did get one question from Lori Gluck concerning the report written. I'm looking for it now. How did I lose it again? I've lost it. Concerning the report from the think tank out of DC on the vision of community colleges. We can
Opportunity America.
Opportunity America. There you go.
Right.
And their report on community colleges.
What does Lori want to know? This is interesting to me.
Well, obviously they wrote a report and they've got a multi-point plan. You're involved with them, right? I mean, this is my understanding that you're that.
Yeah, no, I helped write the report.
Exactly. And so, how do you feel? What are your thoughts about it? Is it basically an encapsulation of your own vision? Because there is a lot in there about jobs, the role of the jobs programs in community colleges. I think the one piece that I walked away with. So let's say if I wasn't looking at it, if I couldn't find the email, the one thing I'd walk away with is that how we measure success at community colleges would not necessarily be by the number of students we enroll or the number of students that we graduate, which has been this yardstick for a while, but our ability to get those people employed once they leave the building. like what is the future, or get them maybe to the, in the previous administration under Dr. Mello, it was our transfer was important for us, getting folks into the next 4-year college. But there was this piece about getting folks jobs. And is that how you see ours? Is that what we're going for now with your administration? Do you think that we're going to try to use that as the yardstick and put together? I mean, I know that, for example, listening to the podcast that talked about fundraising, that was an idea as well. And of course, it does tie into the revitalization of the Queens community. So it does touch a lot of bases. Is that how
we've got a lot to do, Hugo. This is, no rest for the weary, my friend. This is a tall order. So I appreciate Lori's question and the references to OA. OA is Opportunity America. It is a Washington, D.C. based think tank. Full disclosure, I'm on the board of OA and spent, better part of, 2018, 19 going down to D.C. for meetings with community college leaders from around the country that resulted in that report written by Tamar Jacoby. Tamar Jacoby is the lead. She actually does all the writing and research. We go down there and pontificate, ask questions, and talk with her. But anyway, I would say that there are aspects of that report, which, by the way, we released here in New York City with Chancellor Felix Matos Rodriguez back in June in a big webinar, a national event that he helped us host. And that report is helpful. Folks who are interested can see it on the Opportunity America website. But I would say that, yes, there's some ideas there that I embrace. It is not the full scope of what we need to do at LaGuardia. It's not the full package. But there are ideas in that report that I do subscribe to and that I think are important to consider as we move forward at LaGuardia. But it's not like that's a blueprint for LaGuardia. It's a big national report that has implications all over the country. Having said that, going back to your observation, I think of it this way. We've got to do both. We've got to continue to help as many of our LaGuardia students as possible to transfer successfully to senior colleges. And they've got to get a baccalaureate degree there, and then they've got to get a good job. It's not abstract to me. And I'll come back to that in a second. But that's one outcome. That is the outcome we seek, frankly, for most of our students. The other outcome is a job. But a job to a student at LaGuardia, meaning a student who gets an associate degree, those are not, our AAS programs and a very limited number of certificate programs like LPN are supposed to land you a job. I mean, that is the CUNY promise. That's why they're called technically career programs, the AAS degrees. 28%, 27% of our students pursue AAS degrees. So think of nursing and vet tech and music recording technology, industrial design.
Commercial photography.
Well, I go no further. I rest my case. Commercial photography, a host of these career-oriented programs. The credential is a 60-credit AAS degree, Applied Associate of Science degree. That is, again, this is the guarantee on our website, supposed to take you straight away to a decent job. Now, that doesn't always happen because times have changed. Employers have different requirements. But that is, it's certainly in nursing it works, in vet tech, in rad tech, in those fields, in healthcare fields, in some IT fields it works. Still in all, even those students are really going to need eventually to go back to a senior college. Even a nursing student is better off with a BSN, a Bachelor's of Science of Nursing, even if the license exam, the NCLEX, is similar. So because they're going to make more money and have more employment, more opportunities with a BSN than with the associate degree in nursing. So still in all, I back up to this. Okay, any community college really, there are two outcomes. The desirable, good outcomes, right? A successful transfer to a senior college and a baccalaureate degree, or a job in the short term with that Applied Associate of Science, that AAS degree. But ultimately, you're probably looking at, again, just have more options and better income going back to school and getting the baccalaureate degree. There is a third option we don't talk about as much, or a third outcome, which is for the student who leaves with neither, right? The student who doesn't graduate, can we still help that student get some short-term employment, get on her feet, do something so they have a successful outcome? That's a longer discussion. But Hugo, here's the problem, or I should say, here's the challenge. Our graduation rate is now 32%. And it's among the highest of the 7 community colleges. If you take Gutman out of the picture, which is small and quite specialized, it is the highest. And so people should feel good about that. It's above the national average, which is 27%. But no one should sort of say we're doing okay if more than 2/3 of our students come to LaGuardia, give us their money, right? Even if it's their TAP and Pell, there's no refund on financial aid, right? They give us their money, they pay the $2,400 plus per semester, they go several semesters, they leave without a degree. So 2/3 of our students do not get the outcome for which they come. I mean, I think of it that way. I go to work in the morning, go to work. It's, I guess, in my house. I used to say this like euphemist. I go to a job. You go to work in the morning, and I focus a lot. I think a lot about the 2/3 of our students for whom LaGuardia doesn't work out. You think about that. Now, there's a small set of students I know, people are listening saying, wait, what about early transfers? It's true. In CUNY, some students will transfer from LaGuardia before they get the LaGuardia degree. They'll go to Queens College and get into an accounting program there and get a baccalaureate degree, a BS in accounting, and they will have done that before their 60 credits. But you know what? We actually count that because it's called a reverse transfer. If Hugo is a LaGuardia student in a business program and he gets 45 credits and he transfers to Queens College, by the time he has 15 of those credits towards a degree at Queens College notifies us and we grant you retroactively a associate's degree. And so you end up getting both, and we get to count you as a graduate. So I put that aside just because it's important to notice it's not a large number of students, but some will leave. But I always think about the outcomes for students. Why do students come to LaGuardia in the first place, and what do they want? And aren't they the ones that determine, like, if success? Are they pleased with their LaGuardia experience? Did it get them what they want? That's all I want to know. Did it get them? And they want to transfer or they want a job?
Yeah. I guess, one of the things, and in order to be able to measure success is to keep in touch with these students, to find out where they go, what they do, which has been an ongoing issue. And I don't know if you've got some ideas of how to solve that. I mean, for a while I was friending a lot of them on Facebook, giving them my AOL, my personal email to, as another way to get in touch with me. And a lot of them would connect, and so I keep in touch with alumni in that way. But it's a fraction of the number of students I actually work with.
There's a practical thing we need to do, and if she's not doing it, I mean, maybe she's doing it, so she has to forgive me. I'm thinking of Jessica Paris in Career Services.
Right.
We need to get every LaGuardia student to set up a LinkedIn account. Because as students set up LinkedIn accounts, we'll be able to follow them and create LinkedIn groups and use LinkedIn to track them and stay in touch with them and notify them through LinkedIn, which they should do anyway as they develop their resumes and think about advancing in their careers, right? For career networking purposes. So LinkedIn is one tool that we should make better use of. The other is, and this is done, again, it's well documented in Opportunity America study. Other states do this much better than New York State. But we can track outcomes of students through the New York State Department of Labor wage reporting system, right? In other words, if you have Hugo Fernandez's social security number, and obviously this gets encrypted and all the privacy, everything has to be, you could take the name out, but you have you have to protect people's privacy, but you can get data from the State Department of Labor regarding the job outcome and the wages, because that's reported for the purposes of unemployment insurance, right? Everybody gets a W-2. Everybody pays, the IT-201, the state income tax form, et cetera. So the point of the story is other states take their education system and their labor organization, their State Department of Labor, and match the data of a student, right, to the student's employment after college, and they look at the wage effect of their education, right? Like, how is that student doing? Where are they working? and how much are they making. CUNY has started to do this through OIRA, the Office of Institutional Research and Assessment. And I hope that the university will do more of it. Nava Lehrer, our dean of IR, of institutional research at LaGuardia, is fantastic. She and I talk about this a lot. Again, there are appropriate, safeguarded, legitimate ways to simply track a student after their graduation by looking at their employment status, where are they working, what type of employer, and how much are they making, to see the effect of their education. It can be done. There has to be a will to do it, and it's a lot of work.
Interestingly, whether she's using LinkedIn or not, I'm not sure, Jessica, but in the first year seminar course that I'm teaching now, my student success mentor, who happens to be Monami Nagai, who was a graduate of our program, has all our students using Slack. Slack, I don't know if you've ever looked at the interface. It looks like LinkedIn Lite. It has a LinkedIn-esque, and makes me wonder if they're tied together graphically, if not, business-wise. But so maybe we can track people through Slack. And by the way, I am bringing in the career services folks to do a lecture with that group, and which is a very tough subject. For example, in arts, fine arts, they want to know what you can do with a 2-year degree in fine arts. And I could tell you, because I tried to make a living that way, which is basically you're going to be initially, you're handling art. You're like an art mover, an art hanger. Maybe you work in some entry-level job at a museum or a gallery, and it's not particularly sexy and not high earning. And that's the reality in that particular field of fine arts. You're pushed to the terminal degree if you want to compete at the highest levels of things. And then, in fact, if I were to give anybody any kind of advice, if you want to succeed as an artist, I suggest marrying rich.
There you go.
That's probably the easiest way. If you're not rich already, of course, which I don't think many of our students are, but that's how we go.
No, it's the same. It's a great example you give, Hugo, but it's the idea of, and I think this is really important, of early on in a LaGuardia student's experience, having conversations about the future, about like, what do you want to get out of your education here? Why are you majoring in commercial photography? Okay, that's great. Like, what's the path forward? And you don't have to it's not like they have to have all the answers to that, but people should have a pretty good reason for why they like commercial photography, or they have some interest, or, you fill in the blanks over time, but you have to have the conversations. I always say you have to have a conversation about career planning, goals, careers at the gate. Something like 78%, somewhere in there, let's say more than 3/4 of American college students who go to regular, let's call them 4-year senior colleges, right? Do 4 years on a campus of a senior college and never step foot in the career services office. In many places, career services is thought of as like an extracurricular activity. Well, I don't really care about that subject, so I'm not going to go over there. Or, and the other thing that happens, especially LaGuardia and CUNY, people discover or decide to go to career services about a week before graduation, when they're like, I'm graduating. What am I going to do next? Let me go to career services and work on my resume because I might have to look for a job. Totally wrong, totally backwards. Career services, the discussion, and some of the services should start at the very beginning. In fact, it should be part of someone's decision about a major, right? So that if the person is going to be a commercial photography major, you at least have the discussion that you just had. Again, not to derail them or not to say not to do it, so that they're fully aware that they're going to, over time, have to solve for that issue. That this is not, at the associate degree level, going to land you a job as the next Richard Avedon, So Jessica and I talk about this a lot. And we got to do more to have our students, I'm so glad you do this in first year seminar, but that our students are thinking about, what is the purpose? What do they want to get out of their LaGuardia education? And by the way, since for most of our students, go back to the numbers, 3/4 of them, they want to get an associate degree and transfer. Then the question should be, well, where do you want to transfer to? Well, I'd like to go to Hunter for social work. Well, then hold on, just time out. If we have an articulation degree for social work, and I'm making this up because I don't know, with York, we have a lot of, because we do have a lot of articulation agreement with York. Well, you've got to, let's take a little time out there in talking to that student. Well, our graduates tend to go to York. You want to go to Hunter. Well, then we better advisors need to do we better take a look at what is the track record between human services majors at LaGuardia transferring successfully to Hunter for the school for a bachelor's in social, BS in social work or human services. And if that's a spotty record, if for whatever reason that's not a smooth transfer, better tell the student now, not before the day before graduation. And they end up going to Hunter and having 5 courses knocked off their transcript. So again, this is all about starting at the gate at day one with students about what's the outcome. Is this going to work for you, right? Is that major a major in a transfer where criminal justice, John Jay, want to do that? Good, we go to John Jay. We go to Justice Academy, right? Is there a smooth pathway? Because we can't go back. Here's what we got to solve for day in, day out, Hugo. We got to solve for the 2/3 of our students that don't graduate, right? I mean, how can we not? We're taking their money. Most of them are ending up on the street with debt, right? Diminished, demoralized, and indebted, right? And you guys know the numbers. I've talked about it. We let our students not pay their bills. They develop debt, right? It's a way of having debt because you have unpaid bills. And that's statistically, that's most of our students. So I'm just sorry if I'm obsessed with that, but I can't, I can't sit back and say we're doing fine when for most of our students, we do not give them what they want.
I'm much of the same mind. And I think what I just say is that, at least you should know what you're getting into. And that, arts, people don't like to think of it this way, is a professional degree, certainly at the graduate level. And the sooner we start thinking that way, actually, the better off we are. Because, like you said, you can prepare yourself in many ways. I kind of stumbled through it. I use myself as the abject lesson in many of these classes, talk about all the mistakes I've made, though my career is very much like a LaGuardia student's. So, but I like to get into that. I think that faculty, though, in general, are not necessarily used to that. And that's something that we'd have to talk about, is how, faculty are, the focus is typically to deliver content. And once it goes beyond that level, those are other skills we're going to have to learn. And we're going to need support in that process. But it's 1:34. I want to take a station break here. You're watching or listening to LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. My guest today is the president of LaGuardia Community College, Kenneth Adams. Kind of moving over to vision as a source. You want to tag something after
when we go to the message, I get to pause and think about what I just said, and I want people to I want our listeners, Hugo, to remember that 32% graduation rate, and we talk more about this moving forward, and how do we make sure we get the best possible outcomes for the other 68%, right? So we got to, I just want to leave people with that thought. I think it matters. We can't walk away from that obligation. But the other thing is a question for you, because this is part of illustrating the point. What percentage of Americans have a college degree?
I don't know, 20?
30, about a third, 35%. So, we think we're this highly educated nation, and we've gone on this college for all push for a couple of generations now. Everyone's got to go to college. Everyone's got to get a degree. Everyone's got to go party. Everyone's got to do whatever they do, right? So we're a country, statistically, of people who start college and don't finish it, because we've gone through this effort for, again, many years now of saying everyone's got to go to college. I guess we didn't say everyone's got to get a degree. So, again, statistically, lots of Americans go to college, yet 35% of the people in this country actually have a college degree. So this is not a problem unique to LaGuardia. It is something we just really got to work on. And that's why I say having this honest discussion with students about, wait, why are you here? I think you said it before, Hugo, and you're so right. It's not about enrollment. We shouldn't think LaGuardia is a great place because our enrollment is 14,000 students or whatever it is. What does that mean? No, it's about the degree to which whatever the number of students is, we deliver on our promise to them. And we help those students advance in their educations and ultimately their careers, that we play a pivotal, even sometimes transformational role for them in their educational pathway. We're like this critical step in that pathway. So we've got this really, really important role to play, but I just say let's think about it in the broader context. That's all.
Yeah, and again, having said that, teaching the first year seminar, it's something I bring up first day of class is why are you here? And again, I use myself as an example. I mean, why did I go to art school straight out of high school? I didn't know what else to do, and I could get out of my house. I mean, why I kept going back was because, it wasn't a lot of fun trying to make a living in the restaurant industry. And my mother pointed that out and kept sending me back over and over again until, here I am.
Well, I just final. You mentioned faculty. I know we're going to move on, but and it's true. And I'm not asking. I don't want to impose any kind of new burdens on our great LaGuardia faculty that already have so much to do and so many obligations and never enough resources. But one thing to remember, and the average LaGuardia class, when you look around the room or look around the Zoom, almost half of the students already work. Right? We have something like 46% of our students attend part-time. And in most cases, that's because they're holding down a job to help pay the rent, pay for groceries, support their families. So we have, again, almost half of our students already are working. How often do we talk about that work in class, right? Ask students to talk about their jobs. Think about this. Get discussions going, work going about work. That's all. I just throw it out there. In everybody's class, you got a lot of people working already. They're probably not working in the job they hope to work in once they get their LaGuardia degree, right? The night shift at 7-Eleven is not why they're in college, but they are working.
Yeah, and it's actually in photography class, when people bring in photographs from work, that's the most interesting thing to me because it's a place that I don't have access to and they do and can come back with a lot of interesting images. But, again, this idea that you go back to, does everybody have to go to college? I've had students in open sessions, presentations, where we bring in people from the community who are working in the field. And a student will ask that question, do I need a college degree to be a photographer? And, there's like the room goes quiet. And the person, up there on the podium is like looking at me like, well, what do you want me to say? And, over the years, I've had time to think about that a lot. And I say, the answer is no, you don't need a college degree to be a photographer. But, and I've said this, for one thing, as an artist, it's going to make you a better artist because artists, just the more the better your art is. But also the fact that you are surrounded by people who are interested in the same thing you are. You're being guided through the process by professionals, people who have a background in it in an organized way. So it happens faster. And you are building this network that, most of the first job you're ever going to get is through a friend who was in school with you. The first exhibition you're ever going to get is with a friend who, again, you met in school, the grants, all of this stuff. And you don't, because I've tried it. I've done both. I've tried to be an artist without a community. And I've been an artist in a community, predominantly academic. And you get a lot more success through the academic community. But that's, a conversation that people should feel comfortable having and discussing, because I think you're right. As academics, we think everybody should go to school. And in fact, I said this once in a meeting at a CTL event. I said, everybody doesn't have to go to college. And Ed Vian, who's in social science, a great faculty member, said, no, everybody should go to college. And I think what he was trying to say is everybody should be entitled to go or have the opportunity to go. But there are a lot of ways to live a life. And we have to kind of impress upon people how we can make that process better, easier to do. And by the way, those 2/3, as far as I'm concerned, anybody who's in a class with me is going to get something out of it, even if they're only there for that session. And I hope I have an impact, even if they walk away without.
That's right. No, and students do walk away and they come back and they walk away and go to other schools, and it doesn't mean their education pathway has been foreclosed. I don't want to be so harsh about that. But last thought. I know we're going to pivot. This is why we're having a hard time with this pivot. Need some.
May never.
But
pivot.
this is why I always say that, for example, the liberal arts and our more technical programs, they're not mutually exclusive. The challenge for someone who only gets, let's pick one, rad tech, for example, radiological technology, That AAS degree prepares you to do what? To be a radiological technologist, right? X-rays, CT scans, CAT scans, etc., right? You go straight into that job, but you can do nothing else with that degree. The student who, so the balance is the student who has the right mix of the technical, of rad tech with CUNY pathways and then liberal arts courses and courses in the humanities, and starts to build all of those skills that are so important for life. Some people call them life skills. I'm not a huge fan of that term, but they're essential skills around critical thinking and communication, and of course, basic math and English and writing, a part of communication, but these kind of foundational skills, I think of them as, right, which give you options later in life for a bigger kind of menu of career possibilities. So they're broadening and they're strengthening. They give you this foundation. And that's abstract for an abstract thought for a lot of students. It was for me. But, when you're starting in college, you don't think about, I need to have options in my life and a foundation based on, a set of these foundational skills that really are a history, philosophy, science, things that are so important to, again, having options down the road. So we got to help students achieve the right balance, especially, again, the balance to a successful transfer. That's mostly what they want to do. And even that rad tech student is going to be better off down the road. Again, always be more successful with a set of those foundational skills, but we'll be better off getting a bachelor's degree down the road.
Yeah, I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that people need to be able to pivot. Something we can't do on the show, but they need to be able to do in their lives, which is to be able to move. I mean, I've always said to students, look, if you don't know what to major in, English or liberal arts are great degrees because you're going to learn how to communicate. You're going to get exposed to a lot of different things, and you can find yourself in leadership roles in no matter what the field is. So I mean, I teach the technical courses, and I teach also urban studies, writing intensives, and things like that. When I got out of school in '93, my graduate degree, I could make a photograph in any known method possible. That changed drastically through the '90s. And, if I hadn't been able to do other things, trust me, because I am an analog photographer. I know you like the smell of fixer, right? And that's my
stabilizer and developer.
Yeah, exactly.
That old paper.
And I've adapted to digital for my own work, but there are people, Terry Gorjan, I call him like the master of digital, or Lydia Kahn, who also teaches for us. Even Scott Sternbach, who is an analog photographer who also knows digital very well. Maureen Dren, all these people, but not pretty much. If I had my druthers, I teach the analog class. I teach a kid how to make a good print, a good negative. But
so look, let's turn off the safe light.
Right.
Turn off the safe light. Open the darkroom door. Let some light in here at the risk of exposing some of that sensitive paper. And let's take some other questions.
Well, I don't know if there are other questions. I'm going to look at the feed, but
again, then hit me up on that mission stuff.
So let's talk about mission. You've got 10 points, which is a lot of points, by the way. Just saying.
I'm just getting started.
Is there any particular one you want to talk about, or you want me to pick one out of the hat?
Well, I do want to say that several of them are what I call givens, and I don't think that many people would find them like a question or something we could debate at length. For example, being an employer of choice, a great place to work. Of course, every organization should aspire to do that. Every organization should aspire to really, be a fully, legitimately, sincerely inclusive community. And we're working on that. And I don't think someone's going to push back and say, no, that's crazy. What are you talking about, President Adams? Inclusivity, that's crazy. No. I mean, so some of these to me are like just foundational, they're fundamental. Having the best faculty in CUNY, absolutely. How can we not? These are aspirations, Hugo, right? And I don't, by the way, put an asterisk saying the best like community college. No, fast faculty in CUNY, right? So it's some of the other ones where, we need to have a bigger discussion. We've just been talking about the first one, which is the way I like to define student-centered, meaning thinking over the long game, right? Not thinking about the student just in class or just at graduation, but thinking about our place, our function in that student's educational pathway in their life. So we've just done that one. So pick one other one off the list. So you pick. So
I want to talk about It's One House
Oh, good one. How much time do we
because
have?
probably not enough. But it's one that I've thought about a little bit. I think I might have even brought it up at a meeting of which I can't talk about. But uh, I've been trying to work with this. For example, when you asked faculty to step up and help with advisement, I started working with Vanessa Gonzalez and you know getting these students. And I started one of the things I'd learned how to do was to when when I was getting names of students in majors, which I was not necessarily the expert in, I was funneling these to coordinators who then took over. But the few students I did get a chance to work with in fine arts, I quickly got a deep understanding of how complicated it is to work and advise a student. And obviously, this is, for an advisor, they're working over there with no understanding of the discipline, which is very problematic as well. But working together like that, it was a pretty exciting time for those couple of weeks. And, you know, except for the purposes of tenure and promotion, I always go by the rule of it's amazing what you could accomplish if you didn't worry about who took the credit, right?
Right.
So when you're working with a bunch of people in all of these different fields, again, for the student center, for student outcomes, some exciting things can happen. But this is obviously it's an issue, or else it wouldn't be a vision, right? If you don't need a vision if you're already there. So you want to talk about how you want to get to this place where we're all working together like this in one house, unsiloed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you helped me out. You helped answer this one by reminding everybody, reminding our viewers that it's a vision, right? We're not there.
Right.
You maybe, like a lot of things in a vision, you never maybe get 100% there, all the way there, but in the quest to get there, you make, some good things happen. It's kind of magic, right? And you learn stuff and good stuff happens along the way. And so you just keep working towards it and working towards it. So I start, and in my remarks at opening sessions, I was doing something more specific in a one house, sort of it's one house concept, which was trying to break down. I'm just starting one particular silo, which is called ACE, Adult and Continuing Education, and trying to break down the walls there, trying to break down that silo for several reasons. One is we've got to the more you break down those walls, the more you create opportunities for degree-seeking LaGuardia students to go over to ACE and take non-credit training programs that can bolster their credentials, right? So we just did this program in data analytics for computer science majors, and it was fully funded by an outside funder. It was it was a non-credit program, but it tees you up to get the certificate in data analytics that then you put on your resume, and when you're competing for an internship this summer, you're much better off than the student who doesn't have it, who went to Queens and went to wherever, right? So one thing is, again, breaking down this divide so our degree-seeking students get industry certifications, micro-credentials, and other important training that can be short, it can be on weekends, we find funders to pay for it, it can be free, and they just learn more about the field they're going into. And in a competitive labor market, and remember, as New York comes out of the recovery, there's a lot of people looking for work, right? We lost 500,000 jobs. And many of them are going to be older and have more experience. They're LaGuardia students. And employers in many areas are going to be able to have the pick, right? It's not like the economy was before, when you have really low unemployment, and employers will say, well, you know what? I normally wouldn't hire someone that only has an associate's degree, but I can't find anybody else. So, okay, Hugo, you're hired. Well, in this economy, my fear is our LaGuardia students with associate's degrees are not going to seem much harder for them to compete for jobs, because many more job seekers will say, I'll take that job at a lower wage. I have a baccalaureate degree and I'll take that job at a lower wage. So I'm like, we've got to help our students get all of the credentials. They've got to compete. They've got to be well prepared. And ACE can do that. And at the same time, and this is really important, we have about 2,000 students in our adult and continuing education programs now, from the students in the TELC, right, the ESL students, some pre-college students in Johns Hunt programs. We teach GED, task prep, and Spanish, and then all of our workforce training programs. So those 2,000 students, I want them to feel like they are LaGuardia students. No, they don't get they're not in CUNY first. They don't get an ID. And I'm not sure how it is at LaGuardia, but most community colleges, they can't use the library or avail themselves of other services because they don't pay the tech fee. And so I get that. But then they feel like second-class citizens, and that's not right. These are people from the community of Queens who came to LaGuardia. They weren't ready for a 60-credit associate's degree. They probably are older. They have kids or elderly relatives at home. They can't see their way, like this, don't have the time to do a whole 3 years to get a degree. They just need a job. But they chose LaGuardia. I want to embrace them like any LaGuardia student. And I don't want them to feel like second-class citizens. And so I don't like this idea that they're in some other place and they don't matter. I mean, many of them will end up enrolling in LaGuardia if we embrace them and meet their needs in the short term. We'll stay in touch with them, trust me, and we'll get them back, and they'll come back as students to seek a degree. So, and finally, another reason to kind of break down the barriers is that ACE is the place. It sounds like a hardware store. ACE is the place that has the connections with employers because that's what they do. You talk to Chandana, you talk to Hannah, you talk to folks over there. Every day they're working with employers to design these training programs. So our career services folks, like go back to Jessica Paris we talked about, the more she has a close relationship with the people in ACE who know the employers, the greater her potential to help LaGuardia students coming to see her who need a job or an internship. The more that faculty, particularly in AAS degrees, can connect with the expertise under Sunil Gupta, the new VP there, and his team, the more they can get access to employers who can help check the curriculum, particularly AAS programs, to make sure what we're doing in our classrooms is up to current industry standards, right? That's employer relationships as a check and a driver of curriculum quality. Again, ACE is the place, I hate to say it, really sounds like a hardware store. Adult and continuing education is where that can happen. It's like a great resource for the college. So it's just an example. Part of this vision, again, is let's not be so siloed that we're not bringing all these great assets together. So 1 and 1 makes 3 on behalf of our students.
Yeah, two takeaways from that is one of the first courses I ever took in photography was an adult and continuing education class in the junior college, which I would eventually get my 2-year degree from. So I know what happens when you've got students who are adults who don't see themselves in college, finding themselves in a college environment suddenly becomes possible. The piece is that I didn't, listening to the podcast on fundraising, that the chair of our foundation came to LaGuardia through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses and was exposed to the population that way, and has now what a fruitful opportunity that has become with her being exposed to us and everything that the foundation is doing for us. So I do see that connection as well. And I guess you're taking it, I'm still thinking in terms of the academic silo, the pure academic silo, as opposed to all these other connections that we have, the other divisions, in the sense ACE, which is an outlier.
Another way to think about it, and this might be going back to Lori's observation about some of the ideas that I have that are similar to the Opportunity America report from last summer, is this notion of breaking down barriers about credentials. And just like when a student comes to LaGuardia, imagine you had one admissions office, right? Not a separate admissions office for continuing ed and not a different one for the college like we do now. Most places do. But you simply had a very friendly front office, admissions office. Someone comes in and welcome to LaGuardia. How can we help you? And maybe that person is ready for and wants an associate degree, and they're eventually going to want to transfer. And they have an area of interest, and we can, register them and get them in a program and help them all along through the way to a successful transfer, a baccalaureate degree, and a job in that field. Maybe that person says, no, I know I want to be a paramedic, so I've got to do EMT first. That's a non-credit training in ACE. We have some scholarship money for it. We have one of the best EMT training programs in the city. Obviously, on the job as an EMT, after a while, you may get the hunger to become a paramedic. That's a tough program. You've got to come back to LaGuardia, come back to our health sciences program under Chair Phil Gimber, and pursue the associate degree and take the test and become licensed as a paramedic, right? So that same student, we got them on one pathway, right? In paramedic, with non-degree, and then degree. Again, it's about what is the program and ultimately the credential that student coming in that front door is seeking. And some could come in the front door and say, I'm a new immigrant to Queens and I really need to work on my English before I'm ready for college. Okay, we're going to get you into the TELC and work on your English, or into a CLIP or some similar program. And then we're going to help you matriculate into the college and get into a degree program. Someone else, formerly incarcerated, finished the GED in prison, hasn't had any academic, schooling in a long time, if you will, wants it, and on paper has that GED, but is kind of nervous about the college level writing. Okay, let's try CUNY Start. Let's do an assessment, get you in CUNY Start, work on your writing skills, get you ready for classes, support you all along the way. So people come to that front door of LaGuardia with these different needs, and I just don't want to, my vision is we can help all of them, and we can have that discussion about what's the ultimate goal that they seek, and really think with them long term about what they ultimately want to do and play this pivotal role in their lives. And not say, oh, you want to learn English? That's that other building over there. It's called C building. Go see somebody, good luck to you. That's not how you treat people. And then, or the person comes in and said, you get the picture, right? Where we're sort of sending people to these different silos. And by the way, they fall through the cracks, right? We lose track of them. That's not how you take care of people.
I've actually gotten in the habit of walking people to offices and introducing them to whoever's there to make sure they get there. But that's me. But that's me.
You. That's you. That's the Hugo touch.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, I miss the physicality I'll tell you that. I miss the physicality of the campus and walking around and getting coffee in the atrium and seeing all these people along the way. The one thing I just want to touch on the one house, and by the way, we're out of time, is the fact that I came away after listening to you and saying to myself, everybody works hard. And you know what? We're not alone in that. Like, I work hard. I'm pretty sure you work very hard. Lord of Capuano, I know, works hard. Everybody works hard. Sometimes when we're isolated, we feel that we're the only ones working hard. We're not. Everybody's working hard. Again, when you talked about what administrators should expect from their staff, everybody's working hard. It's a question of how we create these parameters in which we work in achieving our goals, that we're working on the right things. And that's another piece of the one house piece that I just listening to you triggered for me. Last words, last things, because believe it or not, we've eaten up an hour of time. So anything you want to say before we have to go?
No, but thanks. No, this was fun for me, Hugo, because viewers need to know it's totally unscripted. I didn't know what this guy was going to ask me. I like it. It's good. It's good, right? Like, we spent a lot of time on the first question. That's my fault. And didn't give you time to make the pivot to some of the other stuff. Okay. But look, thanks for doing this. I hope that viewers, have followed along, and maybe they're doing several other things at the same time. They couldn't be faulted for multitasking since everybody's working hard. But I like the format, and I'd love to come back on whenever you'll have me, and we can continue to talk about this stuff. And if you do get questions or feedback, we can respond to those issues when we meet again.
Yeah, and I think it's nice because, like you said, because it is unscripted, and for our math folks, there is some sort of order in the chaos, and hopefully the folks watching can hear something different. Here we're talking about the same things, we're just talking about them in different ways, and I think the more one of the opportunities you've given us all is the more you talk about things, the better we can understand you, because in the end, I want to be working towards the same goal, and I feel like that, whatever it is, whether it's fundraising to get things done, whether it's providing for students, everybody, I think we all want to work together to achieve something, and if we don't worry about who takes the credit.
Exactly. No. I want to go back. And let's end this on a thank you, which is, you talked about your experience going over to the SIC and taking calls and doing outreach to students. You volunteered to do that for a couple of weeks. You were one of over 60 faculty who did that. And I just want to thank all of you, all 60 plus of you who took the time out, because people are working really hard. It was right before the beginning of the semester, to jump on the phones, to do the texts, to do the emails, and get in touch with LaGuardia students and help them out in the way that you did. Thanks for doing that.
And we'll leave it on that. Folks, you've been watching. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. My guest today has been the president of LaGuardia Community College, Kenneth Adams, who's given us an hour of his very busy schedule to just talk about the many things that are going on and the things he's working on, and we're all working on together. And I'd like to end the show the way we began, with Marian Anderson, the great Marian Anderson, to celebrate Women's History Month, and dovetail nicely with